Okay. I think I'm good to go. Camera's on. Audio's up. Before I pop in there. Okay. Perfect. Scooch on over. Hi! My name's Kaleb. I haven't been on this channel for I don't know how long. Mostly due to my ADHD issues. Personal problems. I really needed to rant about a few things. And maybe this is just a personal update on life and whatnot, or other stuff. I don't know how long I'm going to be doing this, but I need to rant about something that's been truly bothering me as I've been playing it, and that's Starfield. It is the newest game that Bethesda came out with, and I'm so conflicted playing it. I love RPGs. I've been playing RPGs ever since I was a kid. I love them to death. One of my favorite games of all time is Super Mario RPG, and I'll probably rant about that too when it comes out. But Bethesda, what is this? I mean, it's there's so many good aspects of this game, like the background, the world seems to be well thought of, but the NPCs are just so lifeless and dull. Half of them just walk around and just do this. There's a moment, I'm going to move out, there's a reason why I can miss off space. There's a moment while you were playing the game that when you're running through like Neon City or something, like you're just doing this and staring, and it's just weird and clunky and stupid. What the fuck am I looking at? What is happening? Why does this exist? There's a quest line, and I'm authentic with it as far as like playing gameplays and playthroughs. Whatever happens in my playthroughs, especially the first time through, it just happens, and I move on with it. The only faction that I joined, I think, was it's the technology faction. See, I don't even remember the name of it. It was so complex and annoying. But I genuinely was enjoying the storyline for so long because it's definitely interesting how you can get connected into these factions and start going down into like almost like a spiral of what's going on in that faction and joining it. And I genuinely had a lot of fun in that aspect because that part feels alive to a degree. But so many NPCs and so many major characters, I get it. It's a massive game. Not every NPC can be like, oh, okay, bring me to life. But like the only character I can genuinely think of, like, as I've been playing it for, I've logged in at least 30 hours into the game at this point, and I still can only remember one character. That's how memorable these NPCs. They just don't feel alive. It's the Irish chick in Mars. Like that planet or like that settlement actually felt alive. It felt like people were moving and talking and doing things. And that's great. I genuinely was having fun there, even though some of the quest lines are clunky and annoying. As I divert back to what I was originally talking about as far as like the quest line goes, as you're going through that techno, I think it's more corporate because it's the division that does like the neuroscience thing with the brain. As you're going through it, you find yourself, I found myself upset. I get it. But like when you're going through it and you hit the final thing and you're with a whole bunch of board members and you have to go around and convince them to say things, or at least like convince them to be on your side or whatnot. And you can use this neurochip that they put inside of your brain to basically mind meld or get them to do what you want. But if your character doesn't want to do that, my character didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. There's no persuade option unless it's the last person, which you didn't actually expect would be the persuade option. That part I kind of liked. But you go around to all of these NPCs, this mindless walking, this mindless pressing the A button. And You're just like, you will never convince me that to not go through with the neurochip. I like President Lynn. I dislike President Lynn. I think she makes terrible decisions. And there's no options below. Why did I put all this stuff into persuade if I'm not able to persuade people or potentially have the opportunity to persuade? That whole quest line was supposed to be to persuade them. And after you get through with it, it kind of makes sense, but like, it also feels empty. Like the quest line could have used, if you're gonna go through with a quest line, make it make sense. If you are having me, if the goal of the quest line is to persuade, why am I not able to persuade? It's like 2 + 2 = stupid. 2 + 2 = dumb. Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy how upset this makes me, because I shouldn't be upset about a fucking video game. It's a video game. But I'm genuinely passionate about it. It's just the fact. The fact that Baldur's Gate 3 is out, and it's such an amazing example of what an RPG should be as far as choices to be made, and personality, and just the world being alive. It just makes this game not look as good as it's supposed to. And even without Baldur's Gate coming out, like, I find myself sitting here and playing this game and being like, why? Why am I even doing it? Why am I even... If I didn't have my friend here, or well, I'm pointing to my friend as if like he doesn't exist. It's more or less like, if my friend wasn't there playing with me, I would not be having a good time. I would be going around mindlessly, capping people in the head for no reason. Besides, they're pirates. The skills that I went were empath, because it's a generally interesting option as far as dialogue choices sometimes. Street rat, because I thought that was a fun option, which actually, interestingly enough, comes up a lot where it should in dialogue trees, being a neon street rat. And that's awesome. That I didn't have a problem with that quirk. But I've also been wanted, and I played the game for 30 hours. Who texted me? Oh, hi buddy. I got my mind thinking about something else. I find myself lost. There's a lot in this game as it is, and it's very impressive how a game can be so big and yet feel so dull. Like when I'm walking through New Atlantis, it's just like there's zombies walking around. They practically have nothing as far as facial expressions go, besides as far as major NPCs go, like some of their facial expressions and the way that they talk and they move, it's interesting. And very intricate, they feel alive. But everything else around it feels dull. Why are all my companions from the same faction and constellation? Why not spread them out and have a wide variety, have more options as far as choices go? I know this just sounds like another RPG gamer basically asking you to do more, but it feels like you did without doing. You made something and were like, I really like this one thing. I hope everyone else likes this one thing. So we'll make all the companions from this one thing. And then there's a whole bunch of other things that were made by other people that, were kind of left on the burner. Also, The romance options suck. They are just dull, lifeless, because unfortunately the companions are lifeless. Sarah is just lifeless. I know people are not going to like this. It's not really. I don't think it's a hot take. I hope others see it this way. I generally don't want to sit here and just shit on something because it's something that, you know, a lot of people put a lot of heart and passion into. But also, sometimes you just kind of be honest. Like, this is all personal perspective, personal introspective and thoughts. I just don't think it's that great. I have genuinely enjoyed my time with it, but when I compare it to an experience like Baldur's Gate, where you can literally sit there for I don't know how long, hours upon hours upon hours, and it feel like you were just there for an hour. Like, it genuinely feels like the experience it should be. I'm not exactly sure what Starfield's experience was trying to give to players besides the feeling of being out in space and being out in space and occasionally talking to people over the intercom and seeing what Earth looks like, kind of. And then all the moons are desolate and don't do anything and are dull and lifeless and pointless. Everything just feels pointless. If I'm going to waste my life playing something for a few hours, at least make it worth the experience. Luckily, the big plus for this game is that it's on Game Pass. That's about it. That is a major win. That anyone who gets Game Pass and gets that service will be able to access this really expensive game on everything else for. It's an experience for a game. It's like a Game Pass experience. It's what it feels like. I think this game is like 200 gigabytes on computer and stuff. Like, it's just so much for nothing. And maybe I'm just not a space guy. I'm not a space guy at all. But I genuinely feel like it's dumb. Okay, now that actually, no, I'm not done ranting about that. There was a sound glitch that was just randomly playing, and then as we were in the middle of a reconnaissance mission, the sound just stopped. I exited out of the game and looked to see what was happening on the Xbox, and the Xbox sound for every other game and everything that's going on was completely gone too. Somehow Starfield managed to break the audio on any other game that was being played at that point. And I restarted the Xbox a couple times, and somehow, some way, it didn't fix it. So, turn the game off. Come back. And after that, somehow the sound's back on. But why did you manage to break the sound on the Xbox? That's a feat. I've never seen that before. That's a new one. While I was walking, and actually more running through Neon City because the place is big. As I was running through Neon City, as soon as I was getting out of the tech building and running all the way towards the club area, I somehow dipped into the world. And as I was dipping into the world, I started falling. And then I'm just going to pretend like I'm running at this point because I don't know what's happening right now. Eventually the world loaded afterwards, but at that point, actually no it didn't, I had to reload it. I had to reload it further. There's a glitch that happens if you were wanted by a society. Like if you were wanted by one of the societies, there's something in the right corner that lets you know that you're trespassing or something, or like you're trespass. That glitch, the glitch for that one was essentially being able to go to a different planet. You go to a different planet, the thing's still up. It was still up and saying that, hey, I'm here. I'm at this place. I'm on a completely different planet, mind you. I had to go from New Atlantis all the way to Neon. So I had to travel to a different planet. That thing was still up because I'm trespassing at this point. And the reconnaissance mission went to shit because of how terrible the quest design is. After that, I went towards Neon City, and the fucking thing's still at the right top corner. As it's on the right top corner, I'm running and walking and trying to interact with NPCs, and they're not interacting with me because it's registering as me being trespassed, and it keeps blinking, trespass, 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 trespass. Nobody's gonna want you here. I'm on a different planet. Game's a little rough. Now, I'm not going to sit here and sing the praises of Baldur's Gate 3. I could, but I'm not. Because I feel like it wouldn't be a fair comparison because those games are completely different. They're supposed to project completely different experiences. But it's also a better game. It's just a better game. Baldur's Gate 3, everyone's alive. And in this game, nobody is. I'm talking to this dull person, talking to this dull person, talking to this dull person. And I know they were trying to project them having be a real people, so they didn't really want to go too heavy on like the voice acting. There's so many characters you have to voice act anyway. Yeah, what is this? But why? Why even have the voice acting to begin with? I don't know. I'm done ranting about Starfield at this point. Maybe I will rant a little bit more about it in the future. I don't know. I don't think it deserves that much hate, but genuinely upset about how this game experience has been, because I can see the potential in it. There's so much potential in it. Maybe I'll just sit down here. So about how I am. This channel has been dead for I don't know how long at this point. I used to do random RPG games or RPG Maker games, and I kind of crapped on them. And I look back at some of those games or some of those videos, and I mean, like, I enjoyed some, and the others I feel probably were a little unjust, given the fact that these are smaller companies, and they don't really deserve the amount of criticism I was giving it. Like, they have this entire huge budget to do all this incredible, unique things that my gamer brain wanted to do a few years back at this point. So I don't feel like I want to continue doing that type of content, but maybe being able to rant about how I'm doing, maybe rant about what I'm playing, rant about how life is going in general, maybe that'll be helpful. Not only to me, but to somebody out there that might be dealing with the same thing. So, yeah, I'm going to go and do I'm going to visit the couch again. Okay. Here's the thing. I have ADHD. Wow. Such a big fucking deal. A lot of other people have been diagnosed with ADHD, and I don't think people really know the weight that we carry sometimes, the weight of shame, rejection dysmorphia. That's not what it's called, but I know it's like a rejection disorder. I've been diagnosed with ADHD since I think I was around 10 years old, maybe younger. I'm not exactly sure, but I was diagnosed at a younger age. And back in the 90s, we didn't, no one cared. No one thought about it. It wasn't that big of an issue if you had it and you just had it. And they would prescribe you Ritalin, Adderall. The one that I remember the most growing up was Ritalin because I remember it making me feel like a zombie. And when I mean a zombie, I mean a zombie. Like I didn't feel anything back when they had those, back when Ritalin, I know Ritalin's still technically around, they just renamed it to something else. But with a different, someone outside. Whoa, whoa! Whoa! The blinds are falling, my blinds are falling. The blinds are falling. Okay, let me move back in. I have my headphones in because it's a lot easier to have like music in the background while I'm talking to a camera. Now that I've successfully been distracted heavily, let me start over. Actually, no, let me just continue from where I was. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was around 10 years old. And back in the 90s, they didn't really seem to care about it. I remember they still had Adderall, they had Ritalin. Wellbutrin was one of them. And I just remembered it like knowing me, making me feel numb. I didn't understand what was going on. And I didn't have anyone else around me. I was going through the same thing. And I just felt crazy. I felt like a failure. I don't have enough energy to do the things that I want to do. The only thing that gives me any sort of dopamine is video games and music and just occasionally moving my body once in a while. Nothing ever really gave me what I needed to feel normal. Like I think that's a big thing when it comes to ADHD, is that you don't feel normal. You always feel like something is wrong with you, like you're broken. And yeah, some of us have it figured out, and there's popular people and popular streamers, popular celebrities that go through it, and I promise you they probably are dealing with a level of it as well, because it's not easy. Having a lack of dopamine and having a lack of energy and feeling sad, like you don't, like you're free. A lot of times growing up, I felt like my feelings didn't exist. I had a habit of lying because I just wanted to make everyone happy. So in order to make everyone happy, what did I do? I told them what they wanted to hear, which resulted in me becoming a liar. And I learned later on that lying is a normal thing when it comes to ADHD sometimes. And that it's not necessary, you shouldn't be lying. I'm not over here telling you that you should go around lying. That's still a bad thing. I still don't agree with that whatsoever. But looking back at my life and seeing the way that it impacted me and my decision making and wanting to make my stepdad happy, my mom happy occasionally, my mom happy, my family happy, It only resulted in more turmoil for them emotionally. And, you know, I can't go around blaming myself for that, but I also didn't have somebody there telling me that it's not entirely my fault. I'm responsible for my decisions. We are all responsible for our decisions. There are plenty of people with ADHD that make terrible decisions on a consistent basis. And it has nothing to do with the fact that you have ADHD. They use it as an excuse, and they use it to basically help them along in life. And I generally don't think you should do that. But I do think that people should recognize that something is happening up there that is not fair. My entire life, not my entire life, I know what love is. I felt love. I understand what that means. My mom did a great job at teaching me that my feelings exist. It's just that sometimes I just feel too much. And I know this is gonna sound weird saying it, but like, we're having a lack of emotional regulation. It's so hard to understand what you're feeling sometimes. You're kind of just stuck in stasis, trying to understand what you're feeling. And sometimes you get so overwhelmed that you just go and crawl in bed, and then eventually somehow you drifted off into sleep for the next 3 hours, and then it looks like you've been lazing off all day, except you're just stuck in your head in this weird war of like your thoughts on why I'm not able to do the things I'm supposed to do, why I'm not able to do this, and why I'm not able to do that. That you're not able to just sit down and collect everything that needs to be collected. I have recently just got on a new medication. I'm not going to tell you what it is on camera, but I feel a difference as far as motivation. Like, no medication, nothing you take is going to be able to clear those symptoms into your brain. You're going to have that. And it leads to a lot of different things. ADHD branches off into like a whole bunch of disorders, and that's why I firmly believe that no ADHD is the same. I see a lot of patterns in a couple of my friends that have ADHD as well. Some patterns that I have recognized growing up that is significantly different for me. And after doing so much research on this and trying to understand like how to improve my overall mental health, that way I can focus on, you know, the smaller things like physical health, which I've been dieting and exercising, and that's not fun at all. But it's part of helping dopamine go to my head. It helps me collect my thoughts. I didn't know how much that did help as a kid, going outside and playing. Going outside on your bike, I used to rollerblade all the time, and just genuinely going out and getting exercise. It can benefit you so much if you have ADHD. Small things like that, like occasionally I feel like I'm very much an introvert. But I feel like I can talk to people now, or at least have a decent conversation. There's a thing growing up where I had a hard time. I would just stare off into the distance, like I would stare off into a mirror. I specifically remember this memory with my stepdad. I was looking into the mirror, and we were coming back from a drive, or at least I think it was like a lunch date with my grandparents. And we were driving back home, and I found myself staring into the driver's mirror, or like the mirror in the front of the vehicle. And as I'm staring out into the vehicle, like I can see him looking back at me. But at the same time, I'm not even registering that I'm staring. My mind is completely somewhere else. And then all of a sudden he's just like, stop staring. And once again, my brain didn't recognize. He says it again, stop staring. And then like I now recognize it, and I divert my attention. And he goes on this rant about like why you shouldn't stare, which, yeah, there's definitely a reason why you shouldn't stare at people. But I find myself nowadays recalling that and beating myself up like it was my fault. Just whiplashing myself and making myself feel terrible for something that wasn't my fault. And I know that wasn't his intention. He wasn't trying to make me feel bad about it. He was just trying to teach me that you shouldn't stare at people, which you shouldn't. But there's a lot that I have to like fix and settle into my skull. Like growing up, I'm pretty much behind mentally. There wasn't anyone to help me as far as like understanding what ADHD was truly doing to my mind. At this point, I may be in my early 30s, but I feel like I'm in my late 20s. Up here. I see people, my friends, my family, they're finding things, they're doing things, they're finding success in these small things, and they're able to feel happy about it. But my brain focuses on the big things and why the big things aren't happening. And I don't enjoy the small things. I don't enjoy conversations sometimes. I have a hard time looking at people in the eye, because when I look at people in the eye, it just reminds me of my dad. It reminds me, it reminds me of that memory. It reminds me of my ADHD. It reminds me of how flawed I think I am. So, at the end of the day, I know I'm not even really talking to anybody. People are just I'm more or less just ranting to a camera. And as long as, if something were to happen tomorrow, something were to happen in a week, something were to happen in a month, something happens to me in the next few hours, at least people would have a record of my thoughts and my feelings. I love my family. I love my friends. They treated me well. But I'm very much been depressed for years. And I know there's stigma on what depression is, and if like mental depression or like depression of the mind is a thing. Well, it comes from the mind, but back in, like when I was growing up, depression was it just didn't exist. We just went around and did things because we thought that's how we thought life was. Just going around doing things, and the sadness was just supposed to be there. The pain is supposed to be there. I mean, I grew up Christian. I feel like I identify as I still feel like, I don't know if I would identify myself as a Christian. What I would identify myself as is I believe in God, and I believe He exists. And I felt His love. I know that He's there. But my genuine fear of life itself, moving and making choices, I fear making any decision at all, comes with this heavy, intense fear that I'm going to fuck it up. That I'm not able to do it because it's been there for so long. I love my mom, and if this is something that needs to be said, I love you, Mom. it was me and you for the longest time, but you couldn't be there all the time to help. You couldn't be there all the time. A lot of the time it was just me and a TV screen and my Nintendo, or just looking or watching TV for a little bit. And then occasionally me going outside and hanging out with the neighbor kids, only to realize that I'm being bullied without actually knowing that I'm being bullied. Because my brain doesn't recognize it, it just wants to be accepted. I want to be accepted by others. When I grew up, that's all I wanted. I just wanted to feel whole. So I would look for it anywhere. I didn't have a dad that did anything. No, that's wrong. I didn't, my birth dad, that's fine, I'll keep that music going. My actual dad, I still think Tim is my actual dad, but like, cause he raised me. But the dad that biologically is my father, I mean, he left a long time ago. And I don't really have many feelings when it comes to that, because I think I got a lot of them out a long time ago. But I didn't realize life could feel so empty, like you're just drifting. And when you're growing up and you don't, and adults tell you that you appreciate your time as a child, appreciate your time as a teenager, you truly understand what it means afterwards. Because I know how that feels. I truly feel like I'm drifting. And there's people around me and I love them, but no one understands what's going on up here. And the pain that I have felt for so long of wanting to be accepted by others. I did that with a whole bunch of kids. At school, where it resulted in a lot of bullying. And yet there was a lot of good things that came from all those experiences in school, but my brain only remembers the bad stuff. Our brains feel like the negative stuff impacts our life more than the positive. Because I think we just want to tackle it. Well, there's been a lot of significant changes in my life recently that have made me realize just how much we are all going through it. And the economy is so bad right now. Everything is so bad. Like, work is really bad for me. I'm not gonna tell you what job I have, but in my job, like, they had to recently cut a lot of hours, and rent's gone up. Bills still need to get paid, and it comes from the corporate mentality that a building should exist over human souls. Human souls that walk into the building, that make the place active, is more important than the building standing. Something that's just a structure and will be left there after we pass on and go. There's so many times when I'm drifting in thoughts and conversation, which I know I'm pretty much just word vomiting at this point. There's so much that makes me feel like I'm not supposed to be here. Like I'm not, like I've served my purpose here. I don't want to feel like my purpose is just to make sure others are okay. I'm an empath, but it drains me. I used to get energy from helping others, but now it drains me. Like life beats you up so much that you start to forget who you originally were, but you're still morphing into somebody new. I love my family. I love my cousins, and I love my aunt. I love my uncle. I love my best friends. I love Chris, Michael. I love Prince. I love Joe. I love Justo. And you guys are genuinely some of the best people that I don't know where I would be without you guys. I can honestly say that. And before people start to think this is some sort of like video before something happens, no. I can't even say that word on YouTube anyway. But you kind of understand where I'm going with this. That's not the case. I just feel like I'm probably going to need to rant more. I've been seeing a therapist, but like, I feel like I'm pretty much doing the same thing to her as I'm doing to you guys. We'll make it through. The people that I've loved in my life, my past girlfriend, my girlfriends from the past, people that are still in my life nowadays that I genuinely care for. I just want people to know that you're not alone. We're all going through it in our own different ways. I'm really struggling with it, and I hope for less struggle for others, because I generally feel like we'll get to a point where we'll understand what is truly happy for us, what that really means. And we'll see where it goes from here. I might be giving like weekly updates, maybe bi-weekly, but knowing my ass, I'm gonna forget. Yeah, it was a lot late. None but love, guys. See you later.